the overview for you.
I'm impressed that every building decided to use it. I mean, they weren't like voluntold, right?
No, no. But in fact, I mean, any new Title I school-wide school coming on in the state right now is required to use this. It was voluntary for ours, and everybody agreed to do it. So,
Good leadership.
Looks like we're moving on to the unfinished business, school start times and transportation.
And we don't have any more presentation, I don't believe, but both Mr. Stillian is here and Mr. Nordvik from the high school. I haven't heard from any parents or any community members on this. I don't know if board members have, but we are asking you tonight to recommendations to approve the proposal to adjust the start times, and for the reasons that were given at the last meeting, but we're certainly available for questions if you have any.
I've heard the most on this subject at faculty meetings. And I think the last one, Jenny Barker, we heard a concern from a coach's perspective on how the coaches are going to have, a consistent gathering time.
Athletic
Or
coaches.
athletic coaches, yeah, sorry. Has that all been worked out?
Well, we have it now to a certain extent, because we have some schools that, the high school, what time do you guys get out?
3:20.
3:20, and we have schools on the east side, west side of town that get out at 3:55 or 4 o'clock. 3:50. Each Charlotte. So we already kind of have that, and we have people from those schools that coach at the middle schools, so.
Just move cheese, and it's just different people are going to be doing different things, but it's all
Right.
doable.
And at the middle schools, they have a variety of teams that practice. I think they kind of stack practices to where some will practice right after school, some may practice at maybe KH. You have a second wave of practices that probably starts about 4:30 or so. And
5 o'clock usually.
So that might get a little better with the dome thing done. We take a little of that pressure off, but scheduling, we'll just have to work around that.
How will that affect the early morning practices they have? Do you feel like some of those will change because you'll have that extra space?
Hopefully
When
there
that's
won't be as much need to have the early morning
I
practice.
had a question about that, so.
I think it's great for the high school students not to miss those late class hours for athletic early dismissals. I think that's a huge value to this.
Well, it impacts speech and debate,
Yeah.
music programs, travel. We're going to marching competitions and festivals and
Robotics.
activities, so it's, and that is one of the things, we're a little different than the Wichitas of the world. When we schedule somebody to play or to participate in a competition, a marching competition, a lot of times it's not a 30-minute drive. The closest opportunity may be 3 to 4 hours away. So.
A question maybe specifically for Mr. Norby, because Tim brought up the last meeting that there are studies that show that students should start their day a little bit later. And I just wonder if, we have the two young ladies who say they like to get their hardest classes out of the way first thing in the morning. But I'm curious as to how you schedule classes. Do you keep some of that in mind in terms of, and I don't know how you would do that if you have students saying, oh, we're in honors classes and we want to get those out of the way versus.
It's a balance. It really is, and it makes master scheduling difficult because there are only so many hours in the day, and we offer a lot. But we try to make sure that we provide multiple opportunities to take something where somebody who might be involved in an activity might want a class earlier in the day, where someone who might not be involved in something like that or may not have opportunities or as much need to leave campus might take something later on. So we try to offer multiple sections if we can to provide flexibility with that. And we think that the 3 o'clock dismissal then would really help those kids. not have to perhaps stack things as much in the morning because they wouldn't be missing as much school time. And I understand. I've seen the studies that talk about start time for high school kids and things. So I tried to take a look and see what the other schools in the state are doing and how they schedule their start time and their leave time. And it was pretty surprising to me that right now, as far as our dismissal time and our start time, Garden City High School is the second latest starting high school in 6A in the state. Out of 32 schools, we are 31st as far as latest start time in the morning. There's only one school that starts later than we do right now, and that's Junction City. All of the Wichita schools, for instance, start at 8 o'clock. Dodge City at 7:50. When you go to Olathe, Shawnee Mission, Manhattan, 7:45 is the typical start time. 7:45 to 7:50 would be about the median start time for a 6A school in the state of Kansas.
The other thing is we counsel students to understand their best time of day. When do you function best, and maybe you should, you know what I'm saying? I just want to make sure our students are successful and.
Don't we figure that out in college when we miss
Well,
our
yeah, the 8 a.m. class.
When do your
Yeah.
parents yell at you the most?
Well, yeah. Well, there's some peak hours, but essentially, we try to get kids to explore how they learn and the styles that they learn as part of our freshman success class. And I see Beth is kind of nodding her head because she's been through that. So we try to get them to reflect. We don't do any direct counseling about what's your best time of day, but we try to get them to reflect a little bit on how they learn. And it helps them then to decide which academy and which style of classes they like to be in, whether it's more hands-on kind of things or a mix of learning styles. So we try to get them to be reflective. We don't do anything directly, but we try to get them to think about how they learn.
I have heard some negative comments about moving them, especially to high school, earlier, since, that's really the only school that also has 0-hour classes, so it pushes those back earlier. And I am concerned about the research from the pediatricians that shows that teenagers do need more rest. Because now, with having iPads available, a lot of them aren't getting to sleep quite as early as they used to. So I think there is somewhat of an issue with that. And I appreciate that other schools are starting about that time, but I do think that, if the research is trending to say that they should start school later to be optimally efficient and alert at school, and that's probably the way I would have preferred seeing this go. If you're going to have half of them go early and half of them go a little later, I think having the high school go a little later would have been optimal. And I appreciate that some high-achieving students found that early classes were best for them, but I'm not sure that would apply to all of the students at the high school, and certainly not all of them are in activities. So I think there's quite a bit of balancing that has to be done when you look at that. What I would like to see is after the first semester of doing this, what we find from that. Do we have a lot of tardies? Do we have kids falling asleep in class? Are early students not doing as well academically? I would like to see more information, not just do it and forget about it. I would like to find out how this is working and then maybe reassess whether this is the optimal way to go. And I know that you had also looked at maybe adding some 8-hour classes, which would allow students to maybe move their start time a little later. And I would really like to see that. We have so many options for high school students and for the middle school students to learn so many different things, and we just don't have them enough during the day to be able to provide that. But if they had an extra class, they might be able to take something that really would make a difference in their life. So I would just ask that at the end of next semester in the fall, that we hear back on this and get more information and see how it's actually working and how the implementation is going. I really appreciate the having uniform ending times for professional development and all of that, but we really need to think about the over 3,000 students that are actually affected by having it so much earlier, so.
Just a couple of things. I heard from some parents of younger kids who appreciated the fact that their kindergartners will not be on buses with seniors. They've been very, well, and I'm probably not that many seniors are on the buses anyway, but they really appreciated having more age-appropriate or age mates in the bus rather than the older kids. So I did hear that. I did hear some whining from one kid in particular who's mad that he has to go to school early again next year because he's been going to Jenny Barker, so he's already been going early. So he's a little upset about that. But, you know, I still think it's a really good thing. And it's my understanding that some of the research, because I was also concerned about that research too, is that really the optimal time is, I think, 10 o'clock for a start time of school. And I don't know really how feasible that would be. So, I mean, for me, it would have been noon. But so I understand. And I was one of those schools, 7:40 was when we had to get there. And you know, fortunately I had orchestra, so I didn't have to think too much that first hour. But I don't know, I just don't see, I could play, I was doing fine. I just don't know if it was going to be that, if it would have that much of an impact on where we are now, going the direction that we're going. So, but I've heard some comments on that as well, but I just don't know how much of an impact it's going to truly have.
Right,
So.
I know that the optimal start time in the research is much later in the morning, but to just go the opposite way seems like, even if you could just get a little closer, like.
Well, I would like an app from 1 to 2 in the afternoon too.
Yeah. So let's legislate that.
Right? Yeah. Get them very optimal at 1 in the afternoon.
Maybe that could be an option.
I have a couple.
That's in your office.
I have a couple questions, which I think we've already gone over.
Yes.
But as I talk to some community members and my little child who doesn't want to go later for some reason, and she's not my morning person. I had questions about if this was going to cost more. I know you said it was the same amount of buses and less routes, correct?
Correct.
And so I guess cost-wise, what's the answer for that?
It really should not have much more of a cost.
Okay.
Route times, the times that the bus drivers are going to be working are going to stay about the same. It's just going to cut down on the unnecessary, we're picking up 2 here and taking them to this school, and we're picking up 1 there and taking them to that school. We'll be able to pick everybody up along the way and make it more efficient in those terms.
And that may have answered this, I don't know. I had a question about busing the older kids and then going back and getting the younger ones. I have a 7th grader now and 2 at Jenny Barker, so how is that feasible, driving 10 miles out to pick up the older one and then picking the other ones up again?
It's just, we don't have the ability to have them watched at the school.
Right.
I would love to pick everybody up and have them come in that early.
Right.
But with an hour between school start times, we have the ability to go back and get them.
And you're able to do that.
We are.
And you mentioned the length, or you're hoping the amount of time students will be on the bus. Do you feel like that's going to shorten
That will. Even the farthest country kids,
Right.
it should shorten their time because we're going to get them directly and take them to school. And we found out that in your situation, you have that 7th grader, but you also have elementary school students. Very few of the families out in the country have all the way, a secondary all the way down to the elementary.
Right.
It's one or the other, or, maybe a little bit of both. But we're not really going to be going over the same ground twice, is what we found out. And that way they don't have to be on that bus as long.
Well, I appreciate you remembering us way out there. I had a kindergarten or 1st grader getting on at 6:20 one year. That was early, so I'm trying to look at this from all sides of it.
And I thought that was rather early for those kids to get on the bus. And I was on some of those buses last year when we'd go out, and those kids are getting on the bus and going right back to sleep.
Yeah.
And so when they're getting to school, they're still tired.
Yeah.
It's a long ride for them. So this way, hopefully those elementary school kids won't be riding in the dark. They'll be up, they'll be awake, they'll be ready to go as soon as they get to school.
And I've asked Dr. Carlin specifically, but I had a parent come in concerned that the length of the day for the elementary kids was longer based on the start and the end time. But it's just,
Everything was based on the 7-hour and 20-minute day that all of the schools are right now.
I just wanted that recorded in the minutes that I asked that. So I don't have to explain it again.
I made sure not to have anybody go longer than what they were normal.
Well, thank you. This is a tough one. There's a lot of advantages, and I feel like the biggest con is it's hard to change, That's what I hear a lot. This isn't what we're used to, so, I don't know.
It is hard to change, but I think it's important that we keep looking at things, even these kind of invisible things like transportation every now and then, to make sure that they're working for our students and our staff and our community, because this is something that we wouldn't have gone into in this much depth in the past. And I appreciate you bringing it up now and coming up with some ideas to try to make it better for a lot of different reasons. But I do want to keep looking at it. I think that's important to do, because it affects so many people in the community and all of our students. So.
And I really thought maybe we'd have some more public comments or emails, or I haven't had a lot, so I don't know which way to take that. I guess is a good sign, I hope. Not sure.
I'm gonna move, if I may, to approve the school start times and transportation as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion.
Thank you.
Madam President, I just want to thank Charlie. As we shared, I think, at one of the presentations, this has really been a 2-year kind of overview, and Charlie worked last year with principals, and they worked with their teachers and site councils, and there was a lot of discussion about this, and we kind of got to this time of year and said, we had a lot going on, and we needed to make sure that we were going the right direction. So when school started this year again, Charlie brought this back up and went back to those groups, and so a lot of time and effort has went into this, and remember the ultimate goal here. This all started because Mr. Stillian believes that this can help him provide better service to our kids in terms of transportation. These other things are kind of side benefits, but the real goal here is to improve that efficiency. So thank you for all your time and effort, and the principals who have been involved, and the staff members, because it it's different, and as Jennifer said, anytime you have a little bit of a change, it always creates a little bit of discomfort, but I think in the end, we'll have some good data to share with you, and now we'll find out. So we'll start this at enrollment in May, get information out to parents about the change in start times, and we'll keep you posted. Thanks.
And we'll move on to board open discussion. Does anybody have anything they'd like to bring up?
Nice job.
I'm sorry, we're on board of session. At Jenny Barker faculty meeting, Mr. Horney
opened up another invitation for a board member to come see his class with the one-to-one. So if you haven't done an observation of one of the classes, that's a good one to go to, so.
I just wanted to think, we had a couple of students who went up to Topeka today to be pages. And just wanted to thank Representative Wheeler for helping with that and sponsoring them to do that. Very interesting day in Topeka too with some of the votes. There was the can care, or Medicaid expansion, vote today as well. But I think if students are interested. Huh?
How'd that go?
They did fail to override the veto by 3 votes. So, to be able to see what's going on up front, I think is going to be up close and personal, is really great for our students. So if they're able to participate and be able to do something like that, I think we should take advantage, especially since our representatives are so educationally minded that they're willing to do this. So if you know of anyone, I would encourage them to try to get in contact. I know space is filling up for this session, so think about it for next session as well.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Might stay in tune with the school finance stuff that's going on. Was starting to speed up, but it kind of took a pause today. They canceled their meeting today, and I haven't really heard any details as to what the next step is, but they were getting pretty close to at least an initial finance proposal to send to the House floor. This sounds like maybe they'll try to get that through by the time they adjourn, their first adjournment, and then the Senate will take it up when they come back in May. And I think our legislators all understand the importance of having a system in place, because similar to last year, but even more profound, this time the block grant law expires on June 30th. So unless there's a new system in place, there is no mechanism to fund us starting the 1st of July. So while we appreciate them taking time and doing their due diligence to come up with a good product, the clock is ticking. And the closer we get to the 1st of July, without this being settled, certainly just like last year, the more the tensions will rise across the state with our families and our staff members and our students. Now, the students may think that's a pretty good idea that school might not be able to start on time, but for our families and our staff, that's not the message we want to have to convey to them.